Alright, what's going on today, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite cyclist YouTube channel. This week, we got the Mongoose Beast here, and we are working on the rear hub here. But before we get into today's video, if you're new to my channel, make sure you head down below, hit that subscribe button for me. If you already are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell icon right next to that. That way you get notified every time I upload. That way you don't miss any of this awesome cycling content on this channel. So like I said, we were working on the rear hub on the Mongoose Beast. So for those who don't know, this bike is a single-speed coaster brake bike. So that's really what we're focused on, is the coaster brake, or the pedal brake, which essentially is your brake that if you're pedaling and you're moving along, if you go to backpedal and pedal backwards, that's going to be your rear brake. That's going to stop the bike in its tracks. That is the only brake this thing has. And it works, however, it howls pretty solidly. Now, obviously, this thing has, it's a lot of weight, but I think it needs some grease, is really what we're looking at today. Could need worse, but at minimum, we're going to re-grease the coaster brake. So, I'm going to take you guys along with me. We're going to rip this coaster brake apart, show you how a coaster brake is even put together, how it functions, and then we're going to put it back together with some brand new grease, and hopefully that's it. If you need something else, well, that's a whole different story. We'll figure that out when we get to there. But, let's go ahead and get this wheel removed, start tearing it apart. So pretty easy to start off with. We essentially have this strap right here that has a little nut on the back of it, which is generally like a 10 millimeter. Yep, 10 millimeter. And then it has a screw, a Phillips head on the front most of the time. And we're just going to unscrew that guy. This is actually the arm that actuates our coaster brakes. This is actually very important. This isn't attached to your bike. That's probably your problem, why your coaster brake doesn't work. So we're going to remove this first. All right, pop that off. Pop this bolts out, and then that little strap can slide forward. After that, we got two 15 millimeters to remove the wheel. Actually hold the wheel into the frame. Boom. And boom. There we go. That's all there is to it. From there, we just gotta slide it forward, pull our chain off of this side. And then our wheel just pops right out from there. Let's pull this thing apart. All right, now that the wheel's off, we gotta kind of do a couple things before we start tearing this apart. So, first thing we need to do is take off our wheel nuts and our spacers. And remember which way the spacers go. In this case, they just go against each other. Just like that, pretty easy. Set those off to the side, and we have to remove the ones on the other side as well. It really doesn't matter which side they go back on. Just remember where the spacers were and which way they were orientated. So, I'm gonna put those back there. All right, next up we got to do, we need to remove this gear here. So this gear has essentially this little spring clip that goes underneath it. And we need to get a flathead screwdriver. That's at least the way I've done this. And you essentially need to pop this spring clip out. And it is a little tight. Let's try this little small guy here. There we go. That's what I needed. There we go. Little small flathead. Pop that little spring clip off. And that is all that holds that gear on there. That's it. Pretty simple. I have a whole video explaining how to swap out this gear. Really easy to do. So, pop that guy off there. And that will give us full access to our cone wrench. And then our lock nut right there. So, got to get our handy cone wrenches here. If you guys haven't checked out these cone wrenches here, this is a full set from Horace-D. I'm going to have a link in the description. They're probably the best thing I've ever bought from the TikTok shop. So, yes, I have bought stuff from the TikTok shop. Let's see what sizes we got. 15 is our cone wrench. Yep, and a 17 is our lock one there. And so we've got to pull them apart. That was not very tight at all. And we just got to pull off our lock nut. And then we'll pull off our cone nut along right behind it. And again, these are kind of important that you know the order they came in. And in this case, we have our lock nut, and then a washer, and then our cone nut. So, knowing the order those are in, pretty important, so you put it back the right way too. Set that off with those, and then we can pull out our cone wrench. Now we can pull off our cone nut. So, I will say when you pull off this cone nut, this is what's currently holding the axle into the wheel. So, as you pull this off, you want to put your hand behind and keep holding this in, because as you can see, everything's starting to get loose here. So, pull this guy all the way off, unscrew this guy, I'll actually see what this rear end looks like. I don't think I've pulled this apart since I've owned this bike. Okay, cone nut removed. Set that to the side. In here, this is our piece for our gear, which we should be able to slide off of here. Let's see, is it screwed in there on this one? It is screwed in. Pull that guy off. There's essentially the inside. So you got wheel bearings right there. And then the ones that just fell into my hand. These are actually your bearings that help your gear actually turn freely. And then, if I didn't mention it already, coaster brakes are really greasy. From there, we can hold this wheel like this. We should be able to pull the whole back side out. And we can set this off to the side. And that's essentially what makes up our coaster brake right there. Pretty simple, right? Not really. It actually is pretty simple. What do we got going on? So we get a ton of grease. You have, these are actually your coaster brake pads right here. These are what actually push against the inside of your hub and actually slow down your bike. There's 2 of those. There, we can pop those guys off. And then this is essentially what you would consider like a clutch, is this guy right here. So this clutch, so we pull that off. We got to kind of pull it apart and clean it anyways. So this clutch here has a spring and 2 little tabs here. And so pretty much what happens is when you pedal forward, this thing engages, and these little ridges here are what push against the hub of your bike, therefore locking the rear gear in place and allowing you to move forwards. Then when you go back, it pretty much goes the opposite way, and it pushes against those brake pads, and it pushes those out into the hub of the bike. That slows you down that way. And they're kind of cool. They're kind of interesting. So, pretty much from here, we got it all apart. There's nothing else here. We got our bearings right there that we got to just re-grease and pull off. It's pretty easy. Cone nut there. Pretty simple, honestly. And this lever is what holds this in place so that everything can still function like it's supposed to. If this lever is not holding anything in place, it just lets it spin. Therefore, not having any back pressure to have that clutch do what it needs to do. So, from here, it's a matter of cleaning everything up. It is very greasy. Did I say that already? Coaster brakes are very greasy. And so we need to clean, I want to clean everything up. Get it all clean. Once it's all clean, we can throw some new grease in here. We'll throw a butt ton of grease in here. Because as you can tell, there is a decent amount of grease just kind of chilling. And so we need to make sure there's a decent amount of grease back in here chilling. So we need to do that, clean everything up. We'll check everything, make sure everything looks good, nothing's overly worn or anything like that. We'll shove it all back into this bike. Okay, got everything cleaned up as much as I felt like it needed to be cleaned up. So this is essentially how it works. So this is your drive side right here. So this is where that gear goes, right on the outside there. So this is your drive. This slides on there. This guy is your little spring. So your drive side goes into your clutch, just like that. The spring is on this side. Let's get this back in here where it needs to be. There we go. Twist that back where it should be. Screw that so we can go all the way back in. There we go. So you can see here, so as you're pedaling, it's going to push it out and push that clutch into the hub of the bike. When you back off and you pedal backwards, it's going to let this clutch then have your brake pads right on here. Sorry, this way. They're going to be right there. When it goes back, it's going to push those out into the hub. Kind of does reverse of what it's supposed to be. So there's a couple things you're looking at. If it's not working, it's not going, or it's not stopping very well. So those are going to be these teeth on the clutch here. So these teeth, again, are what bites into the hub on your bike. So these teeth, if you can't see them, if they're nice and smooth, if they're too smooth, it's not going to grip into the hub, right? So that could be one of your problems. Or if you're having problems stopping, these guys, I mean, those are essentially your wear bars you see. If those guys are flat, well, you're not stopping either. So kind of the basis to everything there. It's kind of how it works. Pretty simple, right? Pretty simple once you pull it apart, how it all kind of functions. And then this arm is what holds everything in place. So essentially, this whole thing slides on here. Those go into there. That's what's inside your hub with your brake pads right on top, right on this guy right here. Once you see it, it makes a little bit more sense. So, got that all apart. It's now time to put this thing back together. Throw some grease on everything. again. Pretty much what we need to do. So we're gonna get our, we're gonna use bike grease, just standard grease we use on a bike. Should work fine in this case, and it's not gonna be as thick as like that black stuff that's still coming off. I got these as clean as I felt like they should be, so that should be pretty decent. Pretty much we're gonna go, of course, opposite of the way we took it out. So it's pretty much we're gonna put everything onto this, slide this up into the hub, and then screw it on from the back side. Pretty much pretty easy. Pretty easy putting it back together. So let's get some grease, re-grease some stuff here. Let's start putting it back in the hub, and make sure you clean your hub out too on the bike. That's probably one of the most important parts. There's tons of grease in there. You need to make sure that's nice and clean. All right, time to get this thing assembled. So lucky me, these tires have a directional arrow, so I know which way is the drive side. I know which way is the non-drive side, just based on that. However, you can also look at the inside of the hub. It's gonna be hard to see, but essentially one side is a little bit bigger than the other side, and that side's the side that's gonna have the braking portion in there. That's gonna be that side. The other side's gonna be the drive side. So this is the side we're starting with right here. So what we have to do, we're gonna get our arm first, and we need the bearings that go onto the arm, and the balls are gonna go facing onto the race, just like that. So I'll set that there for a second. We're gonna grease this all up. All right, just like that. Then we can get this guy thrown on to there. All right, that should be all set there. Now we need to, I'll set that off to the side for just a minute, because we need to get everything inside of here all greased up and back together. There's the other brake pad. All right, so first thing we need is our clutch. So we're going to undo this. We need to kind of grease up in here, grease up our spring here. And then we'll put our spring back in. So the spring, it only rotates. You're going to want to rotate it the way the direction the spring goes. So just like so. We are going to throw some grease on the outside of this, because this did have grease on it too. Again, everything had grease on here, man. Everything. I'm going to grease up in this, and the threads on this side. Grease up here. All right. There we go. Once we have that, this side's going to point out, obviously. It's going to go doop right inside. I actually might want to put it on here. That may make my life a little bit easier if I can get it back out. Yeah, let's put this back on here, actually. I'm going to put it on our axle. I think this is going to be a slightly easier way to do it. So, it slides right into the slots on kind of our cone nut right there, I guess you could call it. It's kind of essentially what it is. So, it's going to slide right into there, just like so. Make sure that's all the way tightened. All right. After that, we need to get our brake pads and throw grease on those, and those are going to go pretty much where these slots are, right here. So there's slots here, slot here. That's where these brake pads are going to sit. These are right in those slots, just like that. But we need to throw some grease on them first. So let's set that to the side for a second. Let's get a ton of grease on our brake pads. Got that all greased up. So like I said, we're going to set these guys right onto there and right onto there. And with that grease, they should hold themselves into place at least enough to get this inside of the hub. So should be it on this side. So make sure we're on the right side again. And essentially this guy is just going to slide back into our hub. Very carefully. There we are, just like so. Then we need to flip this guy around. Hold it in. Freaking tire's too big. Okay, there we go. All right. Flip it around just like that. We have this guy we need to throw some grease on. And then we have our first wheel bearing. This guy right here. Just going to go right into that hole. There, so we got a couple things we need to grease up now. All right, throw some grease on there. I'm gonna put that facing, with the balls facing out, so they'll be on the race. Okay, I got this guy, which again, we're gonna grease right in here. I'm gonna grease these threads as well. All of this is everything in a coaster brake hub is a moving part, man. Everything is a moving part. All right, once we got that greased up, this guy is going to go right onto our axle and get it kind of centered, like so, and then it threads into our clutch. Okay, so if we turn this lever on the bottom with that threaded in like it's supposed to, so you can see it threads right in, just like that. With it threaded in, if we grab this lever, it should be able to turn where our gear is going to mount. So you can see that turns it, which is exactly what you want. And if we, well, it's not going to do it right now because it's loose, but that's essentially what it needs to do. You need to make sure it turns all the way through. If it turns all the way through, you pretty much got it. You're all set there. So the last thing we need to do is install our bearing right out here, and then we just need to pretty much install our cone and our lock nut from there. So set this to the ground. It is still not held together, so you still need to hold everything in place. So this guy has a bearing, and it has this little top kind of washer. So it essentially goes like this. This guy goes on top, and that's what covers up and kind of is like the dust seal kind of thing on this bike. And this guy goes face down, balls towards the inside. And our little dust cover goes right on the top. All right, and then we just need to get our cone nut right here. Just gonna thread that onto the axle. Once I get that on, I'll bring the wheel up so you can kind of see what's going on. All right, so we got our cone nut on there, holding that in. Get our spacer, because there is a spacer on this one. Luckily, I kept them all in place, so I know where they are. So spacer, lock nut, turn that guy on. Okay, and then from there, we just kind of need to adjust it like you would a normal hub, give or take. Because you don't want this too tight, because if your axle can't spin, then, well, it's not going to work, right? So let's grab these guys. So generally what people say is get the cone nut to touch the bearings, which it is, and then it says to turn about a quarter turn back out. It should be right about there-ish. And let's see how that kind of feels. That's actually not bad. Might be a hair tight, but that's not bad. I think we're going to go with kind of their guidance there. Oh, yeah. That feels smooth. There we go. So, yeah, just like any other bearing, make sure it feels all nice and smooth. That feels great. It's the easiest thing I've adjusted. All right. We get our gear. Our gear just pops right back onto those little pieces there. Your coaster brake may vary. I realize that, but this is at least how mine is functioned. And then we need to get this little spring clip back in place, which can be slightly tricky because it's got a lot of tension to it. There it goes. There's one side, and there's the other side. That's it. So there is engaged, and then there is our brake. So with the gear on, you can actually test it. So pedaling forward, it locks everything into place, just like it should be. And then we pedal backwards, has a little bit of play, and then it engages our brake pads inside. That's it. So let's throw this thing back on the bike, completely reverse. Just need to get all of our spacers and nuts on the end of them. So for those of you who have never done one of these before, just take you through this real quick. So wheel goes through, make sure that the bar is facing down. Get our spacers on the outside, just like so. All right, wheels in. Next thing you gotta do, get the chain on. Chain generally is easiest to get on the rear and then onto the front. Just like so, pedal it on. Chain's on, good to go there. Now we need to get our little tiny bolt right here that holds our strap to the arm. Now we're going to rotate our arm forwards. We're gonna get our strap here, and we need to line up the hole. And we're just going to feed the bolt through. And we need to get our nut on the back, and we're not going to tighten this yet. This is just to keep that bar in place, knowing where that bar is attached to the frame. Once you have that, you get your 15 millimeter. We're going to pull back on the wheel, set our chain tension, just like you would any kind of single speed bike. You got to get your chain tension. Sometimes you're lucky and there's already spots where the paint's worn away, like in this case, where it's pretty much tight in those spots. Cool, so then once you have your axle nuts tight, then you can grab your Phillips screwdriver, your 10mm, and we can tighten down the bolts on our strap, and we're set to go. Spin it, make sure nothing's hitting. Let's test the coaster brake out. All right, so it's all back together. We did everything right. You should be able to pedal forwards. Let me retwist this out of the way. We should be able to pedal forward. And then when we want to use the brake, we just pedal backwards, and there's our brake. We shouldn't be able to, if you can pedal backwards and the wheel spins, you did something wrong. So, but you'll see it kind of goes back a little bit. That's that clutch engaging. I'm locking that rear wheel up. And if I push harder, it doesn't go anywhere. That's just good. Sounds good. Works good. I'd say we got a functioning coaster brake that's a little bit better. And like I said, that's as smooth as wheels ever spun. So that's how you go ahead and rebuild a full coaster brake, get everything working as it is. Showed you how a coaster brake actually put together. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned something new today. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. Appreciate the support. Any comments or questions, let me know down in the comment section below. Love talking to you guys. Love answering questions you guys have. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching today.